Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. Ernie and I are back. So Ernie is back, and we're here to talk about the best movies of 2021. This is our top five episode, everyone. The big one, the big kahuna. These are the best five movies of 2021, according to us. And as I mentioned on the previous episode, this is pretty significant because I see a lot of movies. I have not counted how many I saw from last year, but it's well over a couple hundred. And Ernie saw, I think, over 700 films that came out in 2021. So when we say top five, I mean, this is the real deal. So we're just going to jump right into it so we have time to talk about these fantastic movies. And my number five film is a documentary. This was a particularly great year for documentaries, in my opinion. A lot of films that broke the mold and went beyond the standard PBS style of talking head documentary. And my number five film is Procession by Robert Greene. Robert Greene is a really interesting documentary filmmaker. He teaches, filmmaking at a university, and his style is different, I will say. Procession is about five survivors of sexual assault in the Catholic Church. And they're grown men now, and their assault happened many years ago. And as a way to process what happened to them, as they have continuing litigation with the church, they create reenactments of specific moments that are still traumatic for them using actors in the reenactments. But they themselves, along with a trauma informed psychologist who's on set with them, actually stage the recreation. So they're involved in every step of the process. Robert Greene did this similar format in a previous film of his that I really loved about Bisbee, Arizona, where he had the entire town reenact a really horrific incident that happened in their town involving a group of miners who were of Mexican descent who were disappeared, essentially shipped off by the locals and put out in the middle of the desert. So he is a really interesting filmmaker. This film is really hard to watch, but it's super powerful.
Yeah, Procession was one that I kind of resisted watching for a while just because I knew it was going to be tough and I knew it was I was at a film festival when it played and couldn't quite bring myself to watch it at the festival, so I didn't watch it until it did get shortlisted. And again, glad I watched it. Not sure if I need to see it again. It was there was a lot of there are a lot of tough things to watch, but I think it's definitely worth a watch. And I would agree with you in general that there are a lot of really great documentaries this year. I thought I was going to have a lot more documentaries on my list. I only have one, but I usually do come up with just a whole doc list, so maybe we should do that. But anyway,
That would be fun. And we could post it on the website, right? So
yeah,
that'd be fun.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of good ones.
yeah. So my number five is Memoria, which is a film that again, this is going to be really hard for people to see. I don't know if people have read about this.
Impossible.
It,
Impossible to see.
it's getting a weird sort of it's going to play in theaters like forever, I guess is what they're saying. It's sort of going to be like this old road show where it only plays in one city for a couple of weeks and then it will go to another city. I happen to see I got a link to it, and it's not the way to see the film. I'm dying to see it on the big screen, which I'm lucky that a festival I'm part of, the Milwaukee Film Festival, we're going to play it in the festival, so I'll finally be able to see it in the theater.
Oh, nice.
Like the
Intended.
filmmakers intended, which is why they're sort of doing this odd release strategy, and it's probably never going to be on VOD or anything or streaming or anything like that. So who knows when you're going to get a chance to see it? File it back in your memory banks. It might be a couple years of Memoria. So if people don't know about this film, there's Tilda Swinton. This is a filmmaker whose name is so hard to say. He just goes by Joe. Most people just call him Joe. Tilda Swinton is in it, and she plays this woman who's visiting her sister in Bogota in Colombia. She hears this very odd noise that sort of wakes her up, and she ends up becoming haunted with this loud noise and trying to discover what this noise is. And that is barely skimming the surface of what this film is about. This is another film that just goes in so many weird directions that you just can't ever imagine coming. And the big reveal at the end, it was so unexpected, but it was so satisfying. I don't want to ruin it, obviously, but hopefully you all can see it.
I have to say, Ernie, I love that you had Spider-Man as your top 10 on the previous episode as your number 10. And then you talk about the film paradise, like the film spectrum, 180 degrees, Memoria as your number five. This filmmaker, and I tried to pronounce his name as Apichatpong, but I don't know if that's how you say it. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. He makes super weird, really hard to process, difficult films. Uncle Boon Me, Who Recalls His Past Lives, was one of my favorite top five the year that came out. Tropical Malady. I love his films. I don't know how many of his other ones you've seen, but how would you compare this new one, which is really his first film he's made outside of his home country of Thailand, with those?
Yeah, I've only seen Uncle Boon Me and Cemetery of Splendor.
Cemeteries
Um,
of Splendor, yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So I would say, I mean, again, it's very much along the same lines of where it's very mysterious and there's a lot of things going on underneath the surface, and it does, maybe not quite as complicated as other films, but there's definitely a film that you want to have conversations afterwards, and
Well,
I can totally I understand why they're releasing it the way they are. And if nothing else, yeah, it's a film that you want to see. Again, you want to see with a bunch of people because you're going to be in the lobby discussing it. And I know, seeing some of the ratings of people that have seen it, this is one that either you're going to think this is profound, and other people are like, "Oh, that's stupid." That's when
which is
they're
kind of the reaction to most of his films. People are
yeah,
either bored to death and sleeping through them at film
exactly.
festivals, or they're like me. I mean, his films have this kind of Buddhist meditation quality to them, but
Mhm.
they're so mysterious that to me, they're riveting in their slowness. A little bit like Bellatar, but less dark in that way. Okay, well, we'll move on to my number four film, which is from one of my favorite living filmmakers. In fact, I would go so far as to say he's one of the greatest living filmmakers of all time, Pedro Almodóvar's newest, Parallel Mothers. His previous film, Pain and Glory, was my number one film of that year. And I thought it would be hard to top. And I wouldn't say this one tops it, but boy, does it come close. Parallel Mothers has an amazing performance by Penelope Cruz, who, if there was any justice in the world, which there isn't, so she probably won't win it, but is nominated for Best Actress for the Academy Awards and should be the winner of that. I loved everything about this film. It's a melodrama, but it also takes into account some of the political history in Spain, including the fact there's still a lot of trauma from the Franco regime, and also has these lives of these two women, and how they are both parallel but also very different. And I loved everything about this film, from the look to the lead performances. It moved me tremendously. His filmmaking has become so much more emotional in recent years as he's become older. Pain and Glory, I cried like halfway, through half of the film. This one also brought me to tears. I loved it.
Yeah, Parallel Mothers was great. I think I really it sounds weird. I mean, Almodovar has made so many films, has been making films for decades, but he's just found like another level of maturity to his films. I think a lot of his earlier films are sort of a bit more melodramatic, a bit more, soap opera,
Slapsticky. Yeah. Hmm.
slapsticky. Yeah. And there's definitely, when you read the elements of again, no spoilers, but the whole switched at birth type thing, it's a very soap opera kind of setup,
Hmm.
but he manages to do that in a very mature, sophisticated way, but then have this other story that's going on, like you said, that deals with the Franco regime and the genocide. I think is just really remarkable. So,
Yeah, absolutely loved this movie, and
and
I
then
would agree. Yeah.
yeah, this is all Penelope all the time. So,
Yeah. Did you also love it, or?
no, I really really loved it.
Yeah.
But like you said, she's not going to win an award because she deserves one.
Yeah, exactly. She
Uh,
deserves to win, so she won't win.
She won't
Go.
win. Well, my number four, we don't have to talk about it too briefly. This is, I think, the one film that we have in common, and that's The Power of the Dog. Um, People know about this film. People have probably seen this film. I don't need to say too much about it, other than It's probably got the greatest sort of twist ending that I've seen in a long, long time, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those movies. You see the ending, and then you think, now I get it. So
It's almost like you want to rewatch it after you've seen the movie because you start to
exactly.
realize that so many things that were happening are
There were
actually,
all these little clues, all these little things that you're like, how did I miss that? So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
very good, very well constructed film.
yeah. Well, real quick, I didn't realize this, but if it does win Best Picture, it will only be the fifth Western to win Best Picture. So,
Which is crazy considering the
it's
history of
crazy,
Hollywood and
which,
Westerns.
which is but Unforgiven, No Country for Old Men, it'll be in really good company.
And
So,
definitely the first Western directed by a woman to win by far. Yeah. Not that very many films by women have won, period. So my number three film is actually Drive My Car by Ryûsuke. Oh, you said his name so much better, Ernie. You say it. Ryûsuke
I
Hama.
think Yusuke Hamaguchi.
There you go.
You
I'll
say it
let you
with
say.
confidence, and no one will doubt you. I have
Yeah,
no idea if I said it
I
right.
know. Someone
Yeah.
told me just say it really fast, and then they won't know if you're saying it right or not. It's interesting. You had Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which I really, really want to see on my top 10. I actually resisted wanting to like this as much because so many critics were just salivating over it. I thought, how great could it really be? And maybe it was just the mood I was in that day. But as I sat down in the theater, and I knew it was a 3 hour movie, I just got enveloped in these characters. I saw someone describe this movie as a feeling like a long, warm hug, and I agree with that. After it left, I kind of thought, I want to continue hanging out with these people. I want to know what's going to happen to them. They're such likable characters. Everyone, even the unlikable characters, are likable. It's a movie about tenderness. It's a movie about loss, which I think is a big theme that we can all relate to over the last few years, and about grief and how you deal with that. And to me, that was such an important theme. I just found myself close to tears so many times in this film. It also helps if you're a fan of Chekhov, the playwright, and I am. I wouldn't say it's required to want to understand the movie, but it definitely helps if you've seen a few Chekhov plays. The lead performance by the lead actor, talk about someone that should have been nominated. He's in every frame, and the movie either doesn't work or works on his performance. And I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, I liked it. I think I wasn't, maybe it was the weight of expectation that got to me, or um like I'm not familiar with Chekhov. And so I think maybe that was part of it. Again, I thought it was okay. But I think, yeah, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy is superior. A lot of the same thematically, a lot of the same ideas,
Hmm.
and then obviously acting and writing, top notch. But
Yeah. But what a great filmmaker to have two really great films come out the same year
yes,
too,
exactly, yeah,
like, and they're not like shorts. It's like 5 hours of viewing
yeah.
time. So
And then like any
yes,
other filmmaker, if they make one of these two, that's your career, and he made both of them
two,
in there. Yeah,
1 year. Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing.
So my number three, this is a very unconventional pick. This is I guarantee I have not seen anyone else's top 10 with this film, and this is not entered in the conversation at all, which I think is a shame. And that's Bo Burnham Inside.
Hmm.
This was the stand-up comedy special by Bo Burnham, who I'll admit, other than eighth grade, I did not know who Bo Burnham was until eighth grade, until this special dropped. And if people I think a lot of people resisted seeing this because essentially he's talking about 2020 and sort of COVID
COVID.
and all this stuff. He deals with a lot of heavy stuff. It was equally, in equal measures, gut wrenching and gut busting and laughing. Um, if there was one movie that I think sort of you could encapsulate of what it was like to go through 2020, I think this is it. Because he'll talk about all the, you know, not just COVID, but politics and sort of, George Floyd and the sort of the racial reckoning that we kind of went through or kind of started to go through. Um, this is not your typical topics for a comedy special, but
Hmm.
he does it in a way that makes it that makes you laugh and makes you think. So
I did really like it. It wouldn't make my top 10, but I have seen some of his other specials on Netflix. He's got a couple other more standard, for him anyway, more standard. His style in general is not your standard stand-up comedy. But I think here he really takes it outside of that usual form. So I agree that this is a great pick, and interested to see what he continues doing as both a filmmaker, and as a voice out there. I
Yeah.
found a lot of what he had to say in the movie very compelling. And like you said, it's some of it you're laughing, and then the next moment you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that is what it felt like. So
There's some stuff where you have to laugh because it just hurts too hard, you know.
yeah,
And I think people maybe it doesn't qualify as a movie, although it did get a they
I think it did get a theatrical
did a
release of
theatrical
sorts,
thing.
right? Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that he won some Emmys, I think, and I think he was nominated for some Grammys. So I think
Hmm.
people don't think of it as a traditional film, so it kind of didn't get the attention that maybe it should have.
Yeah.
Plus, like I
Yeah.
said, it's not really, hey, 2020, let's laugh about that, you know?
Right, right, right. Well, I don't know anymore. It seems like 2021, 2022. I don't know. It's all blending together at some point. But speaking of non-conventional films, my number two film is definitely a non-conventional film that actually has gotten a good amount of awards attention, at least, if not public recognition. Flea, oh boy, I'm not even trying to, you know what? I'm just not. His last name is Rasmussen, and that's all I'm going to say because it's probably not Jonas. It's probably Jonas or something. That's a Scandinavian filmmaker. Flea is the first film in Oscar history to be nominated for both Best Documentary, Best Animated Film, and Best International Feature. It's in all three of those categories. And as my recent co-host or guest host Sarah Evans and I said, it might lose in all three, which would also be kind of a shame, but it sort of makes sense in a way because it's a film that tells the story of a refugee who, flees his homeland with his family at a young age and has to keep some really horrible things that happened secret as he tries to make a new life in Scandinavia. And he's now telling his story, his real story, for the first time. And instead of doing things like recreations or just having a talking head, the filmmaker instead decides to use animation, I think, very effectively as a tool to kind of go back and tell what happened to this character. It's a coming of age story and also a coming out story, which I think is really powerful, both reconciling, what's going on with his sexuality along with the trauma that he experienced as someone trying to escape a really horrific situation. There's just so many fantastic things about this movie. It's a real gut punch. It's beautiful too. It's really for me the reason we go to the movies in some ways is to have be in touch with our humanity. And there's another film that almost made my top 10 that's also about refugees called Limbo that I thought was criminally overlooked. And that one's a little bit lighter than Flea. That one would definitely make my top 20. But Flea to me was just one of the powerful experiences of 2021.
Yeah, Flea was great and easily, top 20, one that I consider for my top 10. But like you said, once you get to the top 20, 25 films, it's almost just pick them out of a hat,
Right.
Yeah, and Limbo is great too. And also, like I agree with you, criminally underrated. So my number two film, uh, this is, I'm always it's like, do I put this movie on here because I know people aren't going to see this or maybe not see it for a long time. So this is one that actually has yet to premiere in the United States. It's premiering at South by Southwest and may not come out until later in the fall or even next year. So definitely you want to keep an eye out for this one. It's called, and this is also going to win the award for best title of the year. The Blind Man Who Did Not Want to See Titanic is the name of the film. Um, and it is about a blind man who is a cinephile. He's a movie geek, and his girlfriend wants to see Titanic, and he's never seen Titanic, and he is adamantly opposed to watching Titanic. The actor that is in the film uh, is blind. I mean, not 100% blind, and like the character,
Visually impaired, yeah.
yeah, he's visually impaired. He was sighted at one time, and he's lost his sight gradually over the last couple of years. And so he sort of lives his life through films and sort of his recollection of these films. The film itself puts you in the point of view of this main character. If you've seen The Diving Bell and The Butterfly,
Hmm.
it's very similar in that the entire film is almost sort of like their POV. So you really get to see the world through the eyes of the protagonist who is visually impaired.
I was
And
gonna say, so you see a dark movie? What are you seeing
no,
exactly?
it's a very it's almost sort of like a tunnel vision type movie. It's a very narrow field of view.
Okay.
Um, and it really puts you in the shoes of this character, and you really and you go on, it's a roller coaster of a ride. The basic storyline is that he wants to go see his girlfriend, and they're going to watch a movie together, and she wants to see Titanic, he doesn't want to watch Titanic. So he normally, when he travels with the aid of a sighted person that can help him, but he's decided, well, I can do it on my own. It's just real simple. I can go to the train station, and I know the train, and I can do it on my own. And of course, the journey doesn't go as well as he has planned. And
Is
so
it a
it's really,
drama? Is it a darker film or a comedy?
it's
It's hard for the
it's
way you're describing it. I can't tell.
it's a roller coaster of emotions. It's essentially a drama, but there's comedy. There's it does kind of take a dark turn. So again, like the character, I mean, you're feeling what he feels. It really puts you, when he's in danger, you feel in danger. When he's
Mhm.
elated, you're happy. So yes,
Does it
definitely.
question some of the ableist aspects of our society as someone who's trying to navigate and having trouble seeing?
Yeah, in a way it does, and the fact that the actor himself is visually impaired, I think lends an authenticity to the film. And he was actually brought in, and that's why the filmmaker decided to cast him and to put him in this film, because he actually developed the script and developed the storyline. So he's not just an actor in it. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. It has some parallels with the Procession in that way, in that it's the people featured were also part of the creation of the
Mhm.
film, which is really, I think, interesting and innovative to me. Well, that's one I'm very excited about. Not sure it counted as a 2021 movie. I think you're cheating a little bit there. I know you saw it then, but uh, that's one what hopefully we'll get to see this year, perhaps. So I guess this is it. This is our number one films, and I'm glad we have a little bit of time to talk about our number ones. My number one film of 2021, drumroll please, is A Hero by Asghar Farhadi, and a great Iranian filmmaker. Who this film got really great reviews across the board. So I knew going in I would probably like it. He's rarely made a movie I didn't like. A Separation, of course, is considered one of the greatest films probably of the last 20 years or more. So I really didn't think it would match that, and maybe it hasn't. But for me, I was really surprised how much I loved this film. Um, I loved the fact that it's questioning what we consider a hero. And I thought about the fact, you had Spider-Man as your number 10, and we have these conceptions in our modern society of what a hero is. And in this film, questions that the main character is not a hero, or is he? That's sort of one of the questions. Do we need our heroes to be perfect and not flawed, and to not have human characteristics, that we all make mistakes? It also brings into light issues in our society that we continue to, I think, just suffer from, with the prevalence of social media and the way that it twists our reality of how we show people putting their phones on to catch people doing things. And so there were so many aspects of this film that I loved. I'm really disappointed it didn't get nominated for anything at the Academy Awards. And the lead performance, again, this is another film that really hinges on the lead performance. He's in every scene. The film makes or breaks based on whether or not you can empathize with him, even though he isn't perfect, and you really do.
Yeah. Again, and this is another one that within my top 20 could have easily been my top 10, and just by whatever
Didn't make it, yeah.
didn't make it. Yeah. But I really like how Farhadi deals with the subjectivity of truth, and sort of like what you think is true. And Separation does this amazing thing, and I think it's a wonderful movie, like you said, probably one of the best films of this century, of where you think you know what the truth is, and then you find out more. You kind of see the truth from another point of view, and you're like, okay, well, no, they were right, and then you go back, and then you realize, okay, no, they were right.
Yeah,
And so here it
exactly.
does a lot of the same things too, of what you think the truth is, and how how that's
Yeah, what is the truth? I think that's, and maybe it's because I used to be a journalist, but those themes really resonate with me. And in The Separation, it's the same thing. And here we look at who is the guy we think is maybe the bad guy, the shopkeeper, and then we find out, oh, wait, he has a perspective to his story too. There's all these different sides to the story, and it's really he's interested in the gray area, not the black or white, right? And that
exactly.
to me
Yeah.
is what makes him interesting.
Yeah.
So excited to hear. I know what your number one is, so
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to talk about it because I finally did see it.
So my number one, if you saw my Facebook back in September, then you know what my number one is, and it's been my number one since then, since I saw it at Telluride. And I am as shocked as I think a lot of people are, and that's Spencer. I never in a million years would have thought the Kristen Stewart Princess Diana movie would be my favorite film of the year. And I was very skeptical. I went in not wanting to hate it, but I went in thinking, okay, I'll watch this. And I'm not Pablo Larraín. I do like some of his films. I wasn't really a big fan of Jackie. So again, another reason kind of why I was surprised. But you realize, when you're watching it, what really resonated with me is that it's about this woman who you see almost in real time sort of being crushed underneath 400, centuries of tradition and expectations of who she's supposed to be, of what they want her to be. And she just wants to be a mother, and she just wants to be there for her sons, and she can't be. And she's resisting that with every fiber of her being, but she can't. And you just see her. So and it is very much a horror film, and there's a lot of horror tropes, and I think the score, it's framed as a horror film, and because you really see this woman almost die in front of your eyes of just being, like I said, being crushed underneath
Yeah.
expectations. Yeah.
I think what helped me watching this movie is I had already seen, you reviewed it on the show with me, or no, you talked about it on the show with me. I hadn't seen it yet. And the way you framed it helped me when I finally did get to see it. And I thought, okay, don't think of this as a movie about the royalty, because I really can't stand all the royal stuff. Think of this as a horror movie about a woman who's trapped, and it completely reframes how you think about the movie. Kristen Stewart's performance, to me, her or Penelope Cruz, if either one of them won Best Actress, I'd be happy. She is amazing in the movie. The score by Johnny Greenwood, one of my favorite modern movie composers, really brings home that horrific aspect and the formalistic beauty of the film. One of my favorite scenes at the beginning is when they walk in, and I don't even know if this is real or not, but you have to get weighed. The queen
Yeah.
has this tradition. You have to sit on a scale and get weighed before Christmas dinner because they want to see that you've gained weight by the time you leave, that you were eating enough. And she doesn't want to do it. She's like, I don't want to do the weight thing. And they're like, no, you have to do this. We've done it since the 1700s. You have to weigh in. And it's this little moment of something that's just kind of stupid that she could easily go along with, that she resists, that I felt like that shows that resistance right there. Like, why do I have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Yes, it didn't make my top 10, obviously, but I could see why you loved it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, there were so many sort of set pieces that will stay with me forever. The sequence at the end with the duck hunt or the goose hunt or whatever.
Yes, that's
Again,
powerful.
yeah, like you said, just the formalism behind it of how they're all sort of driving in this line, and the wonderful shot of them pulling out all the guns, and then she comes out in the middle of it with her two sons, and sort of puts an end to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Johnny Lee Miller, or Johnny Greenwood, his score just sort of adds this tension to this slow build tension to the film. So
Yeah, fantastic movie. Definitely rooting for her, Penelope Cruz. Thank you so much, Ernie, for sharing your top five with the viewers. Going to have you back on soon and often, I'm sure. Check out our reviews at realfilmsnobs.com. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, CC Media, Scan TV, Corvallis Access Media, KMUZ Radio, KMWV. We have a podcast. Thank you so much. Have a great day and great movies.